Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Plat. Purplatypus is the name, and today we're going to go over the quad nuke team. That's right, we're doing quad nuke attacks. Going to kind of show you the team. If you watched yesterday's video, it's going to be pretty darn similar to yesterday's, but we're going to go over it in a little more detail, and I'm going to give you a second team here that you could use if you don't want to go quite all in. But this one, I'm going to kind of go more over the gambits, the tactics, the equipment, a little more in depth, and why I'm using the characters I am using, and basically that. All right, so let's get into it. But very first, boom! Thank you to my members, thank you to my supporters. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome, and I really, really, really hope other people consider joining as well. But even if you don't, I've already got me and my fam here. We're gonna keep having a good time. Anyway, let's jump into it. So this is the team I'm talking about. You've probably seen it before. So this is a quad nuke team. What's the idea of this team? The idea of this team is we're going to Dragoon Drive, which you've now seen a couple times on the channel. We're going to do it instantly. However, instead of freezing them, we're going to stun them. Okay? And then after we stun them, we are then going to use Glacial Rain, which is going to freeze them and then stun them a second time. Now, you are able to switch this up and kind of like really go all in if you're really feeling that way. You could do the, which one do we want? Like the flame brand, right? And then this one's probably better. So we do this one on on Archer. So this way we'll stun them, and then we will freeze them, and then we will burn them. So they will get all three of these elements on them at the same time. The burn, the reason why I didn't have burn on is because it's just not that relevant most of the time. And she will go first depending on my equipment. So sometimes she'll go first, sometimes she won't. But if she does go first, I do want her. I want her to stun. It's not a huge deal either way, but you can kind of mix that one up. So we've got the reason we're using these two characters, specifically the Snow Ranger and the Wyvern Master. The Snow Ranger, because she has a built-in, no equipment required, AoE, insanely powerful charge, and it has freeze built into it. So it's insanely powerful. It also freezes, and you don't need to have a weapon. So you could use any weapon you want that's just good, right? You could use the good weapons instead of just the other weapons. Everything else here is just about increasing your damage, and this was for the Coliseum, for that way she doesn't have to worry about getting debuffed. Now, the Wyvern Master is also, in my opinion, pretty important. One, he has a weapon that lets him do that, but there's other weapons that let you do similar attacks. But what the Wyvern Master has is a couple really, really good things here. One, they have built-in, they have the Dragon's Roar. This is very, very good. Inflict -20 initiative on all enemies. There are some comps where you want to lower their initiative, and there are other comps you're going to want to raise your initiative because maybe they have ways to dispel you, or maybe they have ways to remove debuffs on them. So we have both options there, because the top option is to go first. That's what we really want. And so having a way to lower their initiative or raise our own initiative are two ways to kind of get around if they have either a cleric or they have the bird mom. The other one here is the Hawkeye. So the Hawkeye is not built into the character, but it is not. It's not the Hawkeye. Sorry, it's the hot guy. No, they've got the reins, and I'm not using the reins right now because I just got something I consider better. But I do think the reins are really, really good. It can only be equipped by flyers. I don't have it right here. It can only equip by flyers, but it makes your next attack a guaranteed true strike, right? But it also gives you initiative and stuff like that. So it's a really, really good passive to have. But I'm currently using the Hawkeye because it gives you a crit. And now, even though it uses double the amount of PP points, I'm okay with that. So it's really because Dragon's Roar, I think, is really important coverage to have. But also, they do double damage to cavalry. And someone has to go on the front row. So in the rare chance that you actually do get attacked, having the double dodge rate against most things in the game is pretty darn good. So that's why I'm using the Wyvern Master. As far as the other two here, the reason I'm using the Warlock is basically Thunderous Strike. So we need to use someone that can equip these tomes, right? And if we take a look here, these are the classes. You could use the Sorceress, the Warlock, the Elven Fencer, the High Priestess, or the Elven Augur. So the main reason I'm not using these three characters, you could use them. But she is not the best use for it. She is more of a all-in damage dealer. You're not, whoever you're having as this character, you're not going to use any of their passives, right? So if they're mostly a passive character, you're not going to be using them. And so I found like, it just felt like you had to equip too many items to make her work while also trying to use 4 PP on a different character, right? So I didn't really feel like she really worked for this role. Kind of the same with the Elven Fencer. He does some damage, it can stun, but we're already stunning. He does some damage and can lower PP of Cavalry, but I was like, kind of whatever, who cares? And Mirage Stab gives you the ability to evade an attack, but you're not in the front row, and you're not going to be using the really good passive. So it didn't seem that important to me. And as far as the Witch, you could use the Witch, but I find freezing enemies to be less important, mostly because we're already doing that. It didn't seem that important. And Magic Missile is good, but it's not really that important. The damage isn't that important. So the reason I have this is Thunderous Strike, because it allows you to attack a row of enemies and inflict stun. Sometimes, and if you're fighting like a bunch of armored guys that are going to block everything, they'll block the first thing. And this will just help you kind of, if they take their turn, their stun falls off for some reason. This kind of helps you just double up on it, which I think is pretty good. So I found the Warlock to be the best. I mean, I guess you could use the Cleric, to be completely fair. I haven't really used her myself, if I'm just being honest with you. She's probably my lowest level character. Almost, she's level 5. Let's take a quick look at her. I mean, I'm not going to use her because I'm already using a healer. So I mean, there is some flexibility in this comp. There's no doubt. But I'm using a bishop here, mostly because I really dislike having someone that could heal. Like, to be completely honest, it just makes it more sustainable. I don't really care about her PP. Yes, they're good. But if I need to, like, I like having characters with good PP as well, I suppose, because I could turn this off and I could do something like this, you know, turn these on if I want to. But for the most part, this is just to, like, we're basically going to kill things before they can go, and this will allow us to heal from ranged attacks, basically like assists and stuff, right? So this just gives you a little bit of sustain, and sometimes I have Phantom Veil. It's not that important, but sometimes being able to evade an attack can be pretty good because we're usually going first. And so the Bishop and the Warlock, you can kind of mess with these, I think, a little bit more. These are the ones that I like. Because you need someone that can equip the tomes, and I find the extra stun just to be good. You can also switch to Fireball, which does a lot of damage if you prefer Fireball. In this, I would actually probably use the limited staff. I'm trying to do the limited heal staff. I forgot exactly what that one was called, the Precious Rod. I'm trying a different build. I wish I had 2 of these, but I only have 1 right now. This is the one I would use because it heals you above your max HP, which is really good. But that's basically the idea here. She needs to get to 4 PP. He needs to get to 4 PP. He doesn't need to get to 4 PP, but I like him being at 4 PP, so you could do double conferral, right? I think the double conferral is pretty good. But I guess if you only wanted to use 2 PP for this, like, again, there's some flexibility, but this is what I found to be very strong. Now, I think Elaine, this is the best team for Elaine on my... It's hard to say because Elaine is so good in so many things. You could also use Gilbert if you want. I think Gilbert could be very good on this team as well, but I like Gilbert on my other teams because these characters both have ways built in, like between the Hawk's Eye and the Wyvern Eye, and she has built-in Eagle Eye. I already have True Strike, and so Gilbert being able to give everyone True Strike with Sniping Order, I think is better served on teams that are more physical with low accuracy. But really, the reason why we like having Elaine is Rapid Order. This gives all allies plus 20 initiative. That's very big. Again, we have the ability to either, you can't do both, but you could either lower the enemy's initiative by 20 or raise our initiative by 20. So also his initiative is just very high because I think what's really important on him is the Angel Plume item here, because this gives you a bunch of initiative. And so basically there are going to be some fights where you just need to go first and you're not going to worry about the quick impetus. This is my second quick impetus character, because I really care about the stun on this. So there are going to be some fights where, let's say, Dragon, you're like, oh, I don't want a Dragon's Word because they're going to dispel it, or I really want a guaranteed crit to do more damage, or they have a Witch, and if they have a Witch, then you're really going to want haste and action, which is why I'm using a Lips Ring, and you're going to have it target your character here, so you could get ahead of even an enemy Witch. But then there are some times where it's like, all right, this isn't a double quick impetus fight. So we're going to turn that one off. We turn on Rapid Order. We turn on Tailwind. So now at the start of the fight, everyone's going to get 20 initiative. And then Elaine goes so much faster than everyone else. He's already at 70. He's going to 92. So That means he will just go in and he will do his splitting slash or whatever, and then he'll give them another, is it 10 initiative, I think? 10. So he's effectively giving your back row 30 initiative. It won't be enough for the Warlock to outspeed things, but it should be enough for nearly your Snow Ranger to outspeed nearly everything, right? They go up to 69 initiative, which is still slower than Elaine, but at that point, I haven't had to really worry too much about it, and you can always replace the Unicorn Signet with something that gives you additional, like a Raven Plume, if you really, really need to get up into the 80s, you know? So that's why we're using this team here. To give you a showcase, let's just do a showcase of how it works. I may not have a team strong enough to survive the hits. Let's take a look at this team. They have a really high physical defense, and we're doing mostly physical damage. So let's take a look. Okay, well, first of all, let me reset. We did win, but I want to do the double impetus, you know. So let's go ahead. I'm going to do the double impetus on this. We're going to turn these off. Turn that on. And we're actually going to turn on Dragon's Roar. We're not going to do the... I don't want to do the crit in this situation. Because I don't want to accidentally kill them all. I want to kind of see if we can get all... So, because we have 3 AP on each of our characters with the nuke, they get 1 AP from the quick impetus. So they're each going to be able to do it twice. She gives everyone basically max guard rate and a huge amount of physical defense. Hopefully you don't do that much damage. He does have a good weapon, though. All right, so we got Glacial Rain. Instantly goes. You're used to this combo by now. Absolutely. Boom. And we're doing Flame on this one. That's right. That's kind of new for me. Damn, they're all... So, okay, we could do that 4 times. Keep this in mind. And he could even do a critical hit here if I wanted to, but I chose not to. And so now they're all frozen. They're all stunned. I guess they're not stunned. Because the way we did it, they're kind of flipped. But you get the idea. You can kind of play around with the order of things. But that was only half. They do that. They each could do that another time. And because the enemy is going to be frozen, if you make this guy... I need to make this guy literally like 2 points faster. I need to make... Let's see, what's his initiative? They've got roughly the same initiative. Apparently because she's 1 level higher. Oh, she actually just has some more initiative built in from the bow. So I might actually switch the bow here to make her a little bit slower. Because this guy going first is kind of important because she freezes, then he breaks the freeze, right? So you want the Wyvern to go before her. But that's basically the idea of the team. You do 4 nukes. It's really all in and overkill, but it's very powerful even if you're going all in because there's so many ways to manipulate the turn order. And even if they have, like 3 owls, you might have a hard time, but you might not, because even though they have 3 hours and they're kind of countering your build, they also then have 3 owls, right? They're not dealing that much damage, and they might not be able to kill you before these attacks go off naturally. But like, if you're fighting a bunch of owls, you want things like Rapid Order. Yes, they're going to dispel them, and Tailwind, yes, they're going to dispel them, but that's actually good because they end up using their PP to dispel, and then by the time, you know, they get rid of a Rapid Order, then they get rid of a Tailwind, and then they'll get rid of, you know, then they might get rid of a Quick Impetus, but they'll kind of keep, you know, messing with stuff. So there are ways around it, but you also have a lot of freedom in this build to kind of manipulate it to beat nearly everything that I've seen. I mean, I guarantee there's like some bosses with like unique mechanics, like, oh, ignore the first 4 hits. If there's a boss that's like ignores the first 3 attacks, this is going to have a rough time to beat it because it's all alpha, right? So that's something you'll want to consider. This isn't going to be your only team, but it is a very powerful team. So let's look at another character here, kind of another team. We can get rid of these now. So you can kind of do a similar thing here with the Witch, with any character basically, because the Millennium Scepter is also, and this is actually more powerful. This is a less all-in, but probably an overall better strategy unless you really need to deal a ridiculous amount of damage. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, this just does a lot of damage. So you could do that, but the main issue, the reason I'm not using this in my main team is not even the 3 AP, so you can never do it twice. That's not really a big deal. Because if you go up to 4, you use 3, you go up to 2, I mean, you could probably get another AP somewhere too. It's not really that big of a deal. And this is great damage, but the main issue is that these abilities to stun and freeze enemies and to catch them on fire, they only work on physical attacks. So they won't actually even proc on this. And so this doesn't have any built-in CC. but it does make up for it in straight damage, which is why I feel like if you're going all in with trying to get 4 nuclear strikes in, it's just not as good. But if you're just going to do 1 nuclear strike maybe for the whole fight, like you have this character just, the witch is going to be really good for this because you just have her set up with quick cast, right? So she automatically starts the fight at the highest initiative. She starts with Trinity Rain, and then someone quick impetuses her. So you get max initiative Trinity Rain. That's very powerful as an intro to a fight. There's no doubt. And so, but then your other 3 slots are going to want to be a little bit more of a balance, I think. This is not an all-in strategy, but I think she would be pretty good at that. But maybe you even put in a, you know, maybe not the Amalia team. She could probably honestly go here with, like, she could do something like this, use Rainalt. You could probably have Rainalt, because even though Cavalry Call is pretty good, you don't need as much damage if you're going all in on this stuff. So I could even throw her back here, right? Throw the Radiant Knight up front, throw her here. She's going to open with a Trinity Strike, and then everyone else is going to go. Although maybe I wouldn't put her in this one because I like Iron Veil a lot, and you can't use both that. But you know what I'm saying is, like, she could just kind of fit in with anyone that you want to have just a really, really strong AoE, but not go all in. So, let's see if there's anything that I kind of forgot to talk about here. So, the Dragoon's War Spear, you're going to get that just kind of where you get the important items. The Dragoon's War Spear, you're going to get this from completing the Drakengard story area. There's 2 over there, but I don't remember where the second one is. You get one before you beat the campaign if you're doing all the side content. But I got this one, I think, after I actually beat the area in Drakengard. The Hero's Medallion is not super important. It's just good. You get it from the arena. The Sniper's Amber Lens, you're going to get this in the snow area near the end of the snow area. Not quite the end, but near the end. The Lips Ring is super important for the Colosseum. This is super important for allowing you to manipulate your turn order in an important way. But it's you're going to not use it most of the time. Most of the time, this is a useless item on this character. But there are some times it's insane. And you get this from the, I showed it in a previous video, but you get it from the Southern Amani Temple. So after you get, I think, the bird to join you, you can come down, I think it's this town right here. You capture the Yasveta Harbor, you come down here, you beat that fight, you'll get the lips thing. I believe that's where you get it. Let's take a look at any other super important items. The Unicorn Blade is not important for the build. The white cat ear hood and the black cat ear hood are super important. You get one from turning in Divine Shards, and I think you get the other one from the arena tokens. They're identical items. I don't know why they have different names. Maybe it's so one character can equip them both, I guess. I don't know why. I mean, they literally have no difference between them that I could see. Maybe they... I don't know. Maybe one of them signifies, maybe it's just because they come from different areas, right? Maybe one is because it comes from the Divine Shards, one comes from the Evil Colosseum. Angel Plume, I think, is pretty good. This one is also Divine Shards. The staff isn't that important. You know, as far as AP, PP increasing items, those aren't that important. None of these are super, super important. They don't actually change the build because she has it built in. And then the Night Staff isn't important. The tomes are important. These ones, you're just going to be able to buy them later as you get them. The Freeze one was the best for a long time, but once you get this character, and she has the ability to use Glacial Rain, which has Freeze on it, I no longer use it at all. I just combine it with the Stun one, right? Because the Stun one is just that good. The Flame one is really good too, though. Don't get me wrong. Because being able to stun, and then burn, and then freeze, then they just, even when you hit them again, and they unfreeze, then they're going to be stunned, and they're going to take burn damage twice. Because they're going to take burn damage when they're stunned, then they're going to take another burn damage when their turn comes up. So that's 40 damage of burn damage before you even calculate the 4 giant AoE attacks. So I do think the Flame Brand Tome is probably, it might be a little overkill, honestly. You might not need it, but I do like it. And so that is basically the build here. I did want to touch on the Witch, why I'm not using the Witch, why I'm not using Trinity Rain. I think Trinity Rain is going to be really good, but I don't think it's built for this build, basically. Because you can't CC them in it, I just don't think it's not as all in. But if you're going up against certain bosses, like, again, I think you could just plug that into almost any team. So hopefully this is a pretty comprehensive cover of the build. Let's see if I can... There's nothing strong enough I could fight, I don't think. Let's go to the arena and do one fight. How about that? Let's see if we could, like, there's nothing strong enough that I found in the game so far to fight to give this build a hard time. Now, I know it's out there, especially PvP. This is not going to be a PvP build, probably, because it is very easy to... You want to put it as your defense. You could put it as an attack, I think. So as long as you're willing to take a second to make sure the turn orders are going to go in your way, even like a semi-complicated fight like this is really not going to give you much problems at all. Like, I already know this guy uses Dragon's Roar when the fight starts, so our initiative is going to be even slower than it looks, and they're also kind of fast. And I know this character is immune to freezing because of their Glacial Ring. But, like, as long as you're willing to take a second, even these hard fights are pretty darn easy to beat. Like, so I know I'm going to turn off Quick Impetus. This is not a all-in quad nuke combat, but this is why I think this build is strong, is because it's flexible. Instead, we're going to Rapid Order, Tailwind, and actually, I know they have a flyer there, so we're going to put Aerial Guard on as well, so we'll be able to actually survive those hits. And then I am going to use Hawkeye instead of Dragon's Roar because I want to use Tailwind for the extra speed. We're already using PP, so Quick Impetus isn't going to be doing anything, so we're going to use that, and we're going to save his for his guaranteed crit. Although we could also just do haste action, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to do Hawkeye and see if it works. We're also going to put Deflect up there. That way you can negate damage for a single melee hit, assuming you still have PP left. And so yeah, we're just going to make sure that's there. And then let's going to jump into it. So you might have to do like little adjustments as these fights, because it is a combo build, essentially. It's not like a generic powerful. It's like this requires this, requires this. So, like, if suddenly a lane just dies, that could be, like, really rough. So, they lowered our initiative. We raised our initiative. We come out equal. We Spinning Edge for funsies. And then we're going to Tailwind the back, which will give us enough initiative after he does this here. Boom. Go ahead and guard that with your Aerial Guard. Actually, that did hit. So, he's still in trouble. He's still in danger of dying here. Quick Impetus. So, we're doing AoE. Bada bang, bada boom. AoE freeze and stun. Good hits. Like, I mean, obviously they're already all almost dead. Not quite, but almost. Dragoon Drive. Just gonna get started. We did a Sacred Heal. Thunderous Strike is a little scary in this fight. We probably should have turned it off, because if that bear gets undone, he actually, I think, reflects that attack, and that can kind of fuck up a lot of your shit. Good hit. You tried. Great hit. Bowl Force. I think it activates after he kills something. I don't know what happened to our... Anyway, we got the Dragoon Drive, so we're going to do heavy damage here. This guy still does have 3 hits, but we got a PP to guarantee dodge and attack here. He actually just missed passively anyway. And because we have Deflect, right? So I think Deflect will always work here. Okay, well, he missed anyway. I don't know what I messed up to actually get rid of one of my AP. Let's take a quick look. But you can see, like, that was still, like, pretty darn easy for us. We didn't really have to worry about it too much. We just had to do some manipulation here. Oh, because the other bow gave us an AP. So we even accidentally hamstrung myself because I took the bow off because I wanted my dragon to go first in the turn order, which ended up not mattering anyway. But in a pure optimal way, you want the dragon to go first, right? So, and again, we could have even changed it like this and done, like, there's a bunch of ways to manipulate this a little bit to make sure your combo goes off. Because don't forget, at the end of the day, this is a combo build. This is very, very much turn order matters, which abilities you have on at which time matters, which equipment you have on which characters matter. It's the very opposite of something like the, I guess, like this build here, where it's like, hey, these units are all strong, they all do their thing, and they're all pretty good. This is very much like this relies on this, relies on this. So I think this build is probably one of the strongest. It probably isn't going to do great in PvP, but it doesn't have to do great in PvP. It's still just good. Let's go ahead and put on order required. No. Physical attack. Let's put on our strong bow again. Get that little more initiative and evasion. Anyway, guys, that is it for today. Thank you again to my members and my supporters. I appreciate it. Much love. For Purplatypus is for Plat-a-pus. I'll see you in the flip-flops. Bye!